I looked back on my life with the rental properties that we have. They'll all be paid off in September of this year. And, I wish I had more. I wish I would have done more, because it's not enough to live on to, have that support of it. And so that's why I started looking into real estate and came across you, and that's where it all began. I started at Ford Motor Company on the production line. I passed my skilled trades test and then became a skilled tradesman. And it didn't take long, maybe 8 or 9 years. There was, the whole rehabilitation. So it was a lot of reconstruction. And as a young guy, I worked with these older guys who've been doing this for 25 to 35 years. And it was just amazing techniques and skills that they were able to pass on to us. But when the projects were all done, I was one of the highest seniority, low seniority guys. So they didn't hire anybody for like 10 years. And I was in that group that got hired in as a young guy as they started realizing they had to replace them. So when all that work was done in the rehabilitation of all those factories within that 4 square miles of Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan, we were laid off. And because I was high seniority, I got picked up in a substation on midnights for the next 3 years, working 40 hours. And the next guy to seniority and me had 33 years, 35 years, and 38 years. And everything was brand new. Yeah, everything was brand new. So you're on call for maintenance for breakdowns. If something breaks down, needs to be adjusted, you got to be Johnny on the spot.
What year is this? 2008?
No. This is 2003, around 2003 that I got put in that substation.
Okay, got it.
So the reason I tell you that is because there was a lot of idle time. That's when I was introduced to Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then over the next 3 years, I probably read about 100 books on, real estate investing and finance and personal development and, all those types of books that Napoleon Hill. In 2004, I got my real estate license. And because I was on midnights, I started practicing real estate. I'd go home, lay down for a few hours, sleep, get up maybe 11, 12 o'clock, go out and try to, gain some real estate traction. And that's when I started investing. And in 2006, Ford came with buyouts. So because I'd already had a little traction in real estate as a real estate, agent working with a broker who was an investor, I was getting that learning under my belt. I hadn't done a deal yet, but I started learning. And so when 2006, they came to me with a buyout, it gave me enough capital to start investing.
Last year, the SubTo community did $5 billion in transactions, created finance transactions, just in one Discord server. That's not including our Facebook group or other places that we connect as a community. You want to join this community? I promise you this interview that you're listening right now has changed one person's life, but it can change your life too. Come in, join the community, go to joinpacescommunity.com. I want to see you in there, and I want to see you in that Discord server exchanging deals with me.
So I started investing over the next 2 to 3 years. And then, I put all my eggs in one basket because I was thinking to myself, I wanted to be like Robert Kiyosaki. And I only did like 65%, 70% mortgages. I didn't pull all the cash out of the properties. Where some people that I mentored with, they were doing 95% mortgages, 100% mortgages, whatever they could get away with. And so a lot of those people that I mentored with lost all their properties, where I went broke overnight. I just, all my cash was in the property. So I was immediately broke when all the values dropped. And the other thing it did is it didn't give us any more capital to do what we were doing. We had some money left over, my partner Ken and I, and we started looking nationally, like what can we do nationally to, is there any place else that we could do this in, because Michigan got hit hard.
In 2006, you get your license, you start investing, you acquire some rentals.
Yep.
2008, the market obviously crashes.
Mm-hmm.
Are these properties not cash flowing at the time, or did you have adjustable rate mortgages on them that caused the payments to go up and the cash flow to go down? Did you have tenants that maybe stopped paying because, now the economy is in shambles and people weren't paying? What caused you to be in such a bad situation? Because even if you don't have cash, right? Like all your cash is tied up.
Yeah.
This thing has zapped your cash. And then on top of it, you can't go do more projects, which you're probably paying yourself on some of these projects and
right.
keeping, money coming through the door. What killed your cash flow? Like what killed these deals?
So the ones that I kept and acquired as rental properties were fine. They were stable. It was the ones that I actively had in rehab mode that zapped me. So I was able to sell everything, and the debt was about $70,000 that I owed to a private money lender. that I was able to go back and negotiate because it was short term at a little higher interest rate. I mean, not even high, 10%, but I was able to negotiate a longer amortization schedule and pay my dad back. He was reasonable and he believed in us. And like I said, when we started looking nationally, there was, I don't know if you remember, that was back with Hurricane Katrina. So there was an investor in Michigan that was doing deals in Biloxi, Mississippi. So we followed her down there and met with the mayor and some real estate agents and started looking for deals there. And there was the LTV was like 85% by the time you were done. So there was no money to pay ourselves. There was no deal to be had there. But one of the real estate agents said, you ought to go to Mobile, Alabama. In Mobile, Alabama, you know, that's more along the lines and their economy wasn't hit as bad and you should check that out. And so we stayed down there for almost 2 years doing that, but then their economy started softening a little bit, not terrible. And then we had a personal issue. I think I shared with you, my wife, we didn't establish, like, I'm the outgoing social one and she's more introverted. And by moving her away from, you know, her family, having, you know, 5 children, homeschooling, no church group, no support system, you know, she was just getting really lonely and, you know, she was ready to go back home. She had shared with me, and then she had a miscarriage while I was working, because we would get a home ready to flip and we put it up for sale, and then I'd go and work on naval ships because they have a big naval yard down there north of Drummond. So I would go and weld and work on those
What year
ships
is
as a
this?
shipbuilder. This is 2009, end of 2009, 2010, 2010,
Okay, so
right in there.
when the crash happened, you know, things were going well. Obviously, you had projects going, you're flipping.
Right.
How many flips were you guys doing, you know, at the time, and how much do you think you were taking home at the time in 2007, 2008 before the market crash? Were you making 100 grand, 200 grand a year?
No. We were only taking 5 grand each a month to live, just enough to live, so we had more capital to work.
Keep
And that's
pumping
all
in.
it took. Yeah, because I live pretty frugally, so we didn't need much to live.
Okay, so you're sitting here pumping money that you make back into the next project, into the next
Right.
project, into the next project, and then you lose everything
Yeah. And
that you
because
were reinvesting.
yeah, and I didn't understand like what you do now with creative finance. There was seasoning requirements, so I would buy a home and sit on it. So while I'm working on another home, I have my
Yeah.
cash holding another property, so it can be seasoning. So as soon as I'm done with it, it sells.
Yeah, it's interesting, the FHA guideline, or, you know, rules and all that kind of stuff, where like your buyer, man, when the first time I learned that, I learned a hard lesson. And I'm sitting there with a buyer and their lender saying, we can't close on this thing until blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're telling me I have to wait another 60 days and I've got hard money at $4,000 a month that's just eating me away. My profit was supposed to be 15 grand on this flip. Now you're telling me I'm going to make like 6. The seasoning can really kill you on this kind of stuff, for real.
Right.
So the market crashes. You're sitting there making money on your flips. $5,000 a month basically is what you're taking. So you took home like 60 grand that year.
Right.
All of a sudden it dries up. You have no money.
Right.
How are you surviving until you get down to Mobile, Alabama? Like, how are you paying bills and all of that kind of stuff? Are you working on the side? You doing insurance? You doing like odd end jobs? Like, how were you paying the bills?
Yeah, that was side jobs and painting houses, putting flyers in mailbox in the nicest neighborhoods, and I go and paint a house and whatever we could do from that was my background. So it was trades. I'm always thinking me, physical, what can I do and how am I going to get paid the best for my time doing it? I didn't understand leverage.
Yeah, I didn't either. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, my dad loses his job. I'm probably, 6th grade. So I'm like 11, 12 years old. And my dad says, get in the back of the truck. We're going to go pass out flyers. And we would literally just pass out flyers for painting houses. And we would do it all night long, weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, for my dad to land like 1 or 2 paint jobs. And he would land these paint jobs and he'd pay the bills, right? He just lost everything. And I remember learning that at a young age, like, no matter what happens in the world, I can get my hands dirty and I can go make money. Like, I'm not destitute. Now it sucks, right? Being my dad probably at the time was 40 years old. Here he is with 7 kids trying to paint houses at nighttime, or pass out flyers at nighttime, trying to make things happen during the daytime. But it did show me the resilience and what it was required, or what was required to actually push through. And I hear that from you. You're like, yo, I got a family.
Right.
I'm making this happen. I have to go pass out flyers. you're probably printing from your computer, maybe printing from going to Kinko's, having them chop them up. You know, you're going on Microsoft Word, typing up your own little ads type of thing, chopping them up into 4 pieces, throwing them in mailboxes, doors, doing all that kind of stuff. Hundreds of houses, like literally hundreds of houses you would do. And you probably, just to give people the understanding of this, is your truck, your vehicle, whatever you're using at the time is probably littered with these flyers because they end up getting everywhere. And then you find them even years later, you find them like stuffed under your trunk or in your trunk and in your pant pockets, you know, a shirt pocket that you haven't worn in 5 years. You put that shirt on and you pull one of these flyers out and it reminds you, oh my gosh, dude, I had to freaking grind out to get paint jobs and to get odd end jobs and handyman jobs and all of these types of things. And I imagine that's what it was like, right?
Yeah, 100%. You got it. I could tell you lived it.
Yeah, I lived it. And I think it's important for people to hear that. Like, there's people that will DM me, Michael, and they go, I have no money. I'm homeless. I'm jobless. I'm this, that, and the other. I'm like, dude, you have like literally no excuse. And here's why you don't have excuses. It is because there are construction crews out there. There are contractors, handymen that are like, I wish I could find a good person that would just show up, right? Like right now, you're giving me inspiration for like a YouTube episode where I go, all right, guys, I'm broke. I have nothing. I'm emptying my pockets and I'm handing in my cell phone and I'm going to go join a construction crew and I'm going to work 6 in the morning till 2:00 in the afternoon. And I'm going to have a video crew follow me and see what I do. Podcasts I listen to, like what I wrote down for you is like in 2003, you had all this idle time. Like what I love about you, Michael, is that you weren't just chilling, like surfing through social media. Obviously, social media wasn't a thing at the time. If it was, you'd be watching YouTube videos, right?
100%. Yeah.
But you're reading books and you're like filling in your idle time in between these calls that you would get, and you create opportunity. You don't wait for opportunity, you create opportunity. And you're sitting there creating and planting the seeds in your mind of like all these books you're reading. You weren't creating an opportunity by going out and networking, obviously reading these books, but what you did is you expanded your eyeballs and your vision so that when an opportunity did come to you, you could identify it, right? And you learned how to communicate with people. And these books opened up those eyeballs for you. You didn't realize you were going to have to use those books so heavily in 2008 when the market crashed and you had to start networking with people in Mobile, Alabama and follow this agent and all of that stuff. Those books you read really were seeds you planted that you didn't know were going to come to harvest when you really, really needed to pull from that information or that inspiration or that structure, that framework. For the people that like don't understand this, if the market crashes and you're a man that has a family to support, there's no option for you except to get your ass out there and figure out how to paint a house or fix a thing and, you know, install a shower valve that's leaking and do whatever it is that you can charge a little old lady down the street $100 to do a thing. And you're like, that's the $100 that's paying for the groceries this week. And literally, I have been there. I truly have been there, not only with my father, but later in life, I had to do the same thing. So same thing with me, like 2008, about the same time, 2008, 2009, my company that we had was doing $25 million a year in revenue. I lost everything. The investors came in, took the company back over because obviously the company went from, you know, 100 to $0, like 100 to 0 really quick because of the 2008 crash. Our business was all centered around oil, and we would produce products for the oil industry producers. And when the barrel of oil went from $150 a barrel down to $20 a barrel overnight, we lost all of our customers. And I had inventory and 250 employees and payroll and all this kind of stuff as a 22, 23-year-old kid. And I had to go do the same thing, handyman, odd end jobs. And guess what I defaulted as? Like flyers. And what I love about this with you, Michael, is that nobody told you to do that. Nobody sat there and said, Michael, you got to go do this. You had to like tie your shoes, get up, hold yourself up from your bootstraps, get out there, start passing out flyers and figure out how to be okay with it and figure out how to go from being like a top senior executive in the Ford world, like not a senior executive, like running the whole company, but that your department and being one of these senior people to holy crap, I have to reinvent myself entirely. And all of these things that I've accomplished don't mean crap because the bills of next month are coming right now.
Right.
So were you primarily painting, or what kind of jobs were you getting when you're passing out these flyers?
Yeah, yeah, I found that was the easiest thing to do, low overhead. I mean, paintbrush, bucket, spray. We already had the airless sprayer. We had the tools. And so it just seemed like that was, the easiest thing to do. Power
And
wash
what
the
city
house,
are you doing
scrape,
these
and
jobs in?
that was in Alabama. Yeah.
Okay, so it's cold in the winter, but not like too cold,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Coming from Michigan, it was no big deal at all.
Okay, so for you, you're doing both outside, inside paint. You're doing baseboard replacement, caulking, pulling toilets off, putting toilets back. You're masking things off, figuring out where am I going to put all this masking paper and plastic that created from this job. Where do I take this trash? You're looking for dumpsters late at night to dump your trash. Like you're doing everything possible to make a buck.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then what hit hard too, being in Alabama, is we had a beautiful home, 4-bedroom, colonial, in-ground swimming pool, very, very nice home. And because of what I saw from an expense standpoint, I knew I was 16, I think it was 15, $1,600 a month, something like that. And so we moved out of it, and I put a tenant in there, and we lived in a much more humble home to offset that so we could keep it. And then my tenants quit paying rent,
Oh,
and that's what made the tailspin begin, where like I just couldn't pay here, pay there, and so I quit making the payments on that. Foreclosure leads to bankruptcy, and
what year did you end up going through bankruptcy?
it was like 2010.
2010.
And so, and we, our intention was to move back into that home. So we had like all personal family effects and everything in the attic of the garage, that we had tucked away in there. And the bank went to the tenants, and they negotiated cash for keys as long as they didn't let us in the property. So we couldn't even get our stuff.
Now, as a man, right? Like you've got your beautiful wife who married you and trusted you to pay the bills and take care of the things and do all this stuff. Like what was the mindset you had at the time when you were going through all this stuff? Like, were you super happy and joyous all day long, or like?
It was horrible, horrible. It was humbling because I went from making really, really good money, as a skilled tradesman to, hey, trust me and take a chance. And one of the commitments I made to my wife, she worked up until she was 9 months pregnant with our first child. And I came from a divorced home. And so my mother worked, and, my dad, my mother had custody. So, and my dad worked a lot. And so we were home alone a lot, my brother and I. And so that's just a lot of alone time from 5th grade on. And so my commitment to my wife is I wanted our children to have a parent with them. And so I said, if I have to work 2, 3 jobs, you'll never have to work outside the home. I'll take care of it. So as I just kept failing, man, it was it was tough. It was tough. I think it was probably the books and the audios and the things that, like, because you don't want to hit play, you don't want to read, you don't want to do these things. But I always called my, and then fast forward into the trucking industry. I did that when we moved back to Michigan. I always called it my university on wheels, is, because I always listened to audios and, things that could keep my mind right. Because failing, my dad, like, he was so upset when I left Ford Motor Company because he was a 40-year guy, a skilled tradesman, and he did very, very well for himself. And so, he was like, "Are you sure, son? Are you sure?" And I was like, "Dad, I hate it here. Like, just sitting here watching a production line, and it's just not. I can't be creative." Sometimes I had to fight the union because it would go by overtime hours. Like, if you wanted to work overtime, you had to be within this certain parameters. And then, over on the management side, sometimes they would block things that you're trying to accomplish. It was a horrible experience at the end for me. For me, not for some people, it's great, but for me, I was at that point where I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to, I had greater dreams and what that could, accommodate me for.
You just had your eyes open. You had these guys like Jim Rohn and Robert Kiyosaki open up your eyeballs that maybe your father just didn't see the world that you see, and here you are looking at the world in 3D, your father's looking at it in 2D, and he said, he looks at it like Super Mario Brothers #1. you're looking at it as like the new Super Mario that's all in 4D and all sorts of amazing angles with 2 different controllers and you just see it, the game at a higher level, instead of settling and just playing Super Mario Brothers your entire life. You're like, no, I want to play the more advanced thing that challenges me and puts me in a realm of things that I've never seen before.
Hey, I want to interrupt this video to tell you about Squad Up Summits coming up on April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. All the way down here, guys, check this out. It's happening in Orlando. It's going to be happening in Orlando. Why should you be there? There are going to be people that you meet there that are going to be your private money lenders, people that bring deals to you, people that you can recruit on your team. Our events are the most collaborative events in real estate. We're not just giving you information. Yeah, cool, awesome. If you want information, go to ChatGPT. We have speakers that will help you create the through line into your vision of what you really want to do. You'll walk out of there with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing exactly what you want to do, and more importantly, who you're going to do it with. You will find partners, private money lenders, recruit employees, whatever it is that you need in your business, it will be at Squad Up Summit. So make sure you get your ticket. Go to squadupsummit.com. Now back to the video.
But also, like, think about the timing too. Like, you went through a period of being like having to build a callous part of your personality of like, I can overcome anything. Like, bro, I remember how bad 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12 were. The bottom of the market didn't hit until like 2011, maybe even like beginning of 2012. Like, that was the actual bottom of the market. So like, you were writing this thing down and trying to support your family and pay for the bills and all that kind of stuff. And then you get a tenant that's like, I'm out. That's something that could kill me. You know, something that could kill me right now is if I just had 300 tenants decide I'm not going to pay my bill because, you know, the economy's crashing or whatever's happening. I could lose everything, right? Like, nobody's insulated from this. And there's big, massive companies just in the last year that are in the multifamily space that it wasn't even their tenants that killed them. What killed them was the interest on their loans was going up, and the term on their loan was coming due. And so they had to refinance, but they had to refinance it to something twice as expensive as what they had before. And these guys last year in a good economy lost hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate. So it is possible to lose it all. And so here you are making anything happen. Here you are in Mobile, Alabama. Daytime, you're grinding, you're working paint jobs, doing everything you possibly can. Nighttime or on the side, you're doing these projects.
Right.
And you guys are doing some successful flips. This is 2009, 2010.
Yep.
Your tenant stops paying. Now you're like, I can't pay anymore. Like, I'm barely making ends meet. And you're probably having conversations at home with your wife of like, we need to spend less money. Hey, I only have this much money coming into next month. And you're probably having all these internal conversations like, why are things so damn expensive? I'm working as hard as I possibly can.
Right.
And then the tenant stops paying. And you're like, oh my, no. Then you go through this moment of like, we're going to lose this house that we thought we were going to move back into, this beautiful colonial house that my wife loved. And that was probably the saving grace in your mind of like, in my mind, don't worry, Michael, because in a couple of years, we'll be back in that house. It'll be great. I just got to grind out for a little bit of time. Tenant stops paying. Your wife finds out you guys are going to lose the house. And not only that, but you can't get inside the house to get your personal effects.
Yep.
Is this the moment where you're like, I'm filing bankruptcy, or what was that moment?
No, I kicked bankruptcy down the road longer than I should have. And it was just like, I looked at it as failure, and I just didn't want to admit defeat. And, you know, then you listen to people and read biographies and autobiographies, and, you know, you're playing within the parameters of the laws that have been created for you. Man, it was just, it was my pride. I just couldn't get out of my own way until it was the last ditch. I mean, it was, for me to do that, it was at the point, I told you my wife wanted to move back to Michigan and be closer to family and a support system. I had a guy that I was kind of spiritually mentoring with, and he told me, he said, Michael, you have a scriptural responsibility to your wife's happiness. And he said, can you make a living up north? And I said, yeah, I can make a living anywhere. I'll figure it out. And he said, then you should get your wife closer to family during this time. And, you know, so we had a family member, believe it or not, it was a friend of the family. They had a house that their parents had passed away, and they said, you can move into this home if you pay the utilities and taxes.
Oh, you lucky dog.
Yeah, because nothing was selling. So that bought me, I think, 4 months of time before the house actually sold to get settled in Michigan. And then I had a friend get activated in the military who had 4 rental properties. And he said, hey, if you manage my properties while I'm on deployment, you can live in this one at cost.
Wow.
It was not in a good neighborhood, but we were able to get in there, and we stayed about 3
get some money.
years.
Get some money. You had
Yeah,
some money
yeah.
that you didn't have to just hemorrhage. You had the ability to like rebuild and all of that, right?
Yeah, so then I went back to my tools and rigging and driving semi and, just banging out as many hours as I could. I found a company. The problem was then was the Michigan was it was a pretty lean economy.
Oh,
So
bro, it was
all of,
desolate there. It was like, I
yes,
remember back then, like, oh my gosh, houses couldn't sell for $1,000, bro.
yeah, yeah. So I had to work on the road. So I was gone all the time on the
Mm.
road. Stamping presses from manufacturing facilities, that's what I moved. So we would, destack them, load them on trucks, move them to the next plant, and put them back together.
But the good thing is that your wife was near home, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it was easier for her in that moment of being alone
Mm.
because her, 4 sisters, her mother, my mother, everybody was within 10 miles then again.
And I'm just thinking like, this is gonna maybe just sound bad, but it probably was a relief for your wife to not see you every day.
Yep. I mean, probably. Yeah. I bet if we were interviewing her, she probably would say that. Well, I can confirm that because when I would come back into town, if I was on the road for 2 weeks, I'd be home for like 3, 4 days. She said I was disrupting the routine with the children and the homeschooling and,
Yeah, I mean, I have not been through that exact situation, but I can just tell you, I've talked to a lot of people that have been through similar situations, and it's tough because when you really think about it, you really worked your ass off. In Mobile, Alabama, you were dirty every day from painting. You were doing everything you possibly could to make sure that the bills were paid. Women don't understand these things. Like a traditional wife doesn't understand it. It's like, well, my husband's working. Why is the money just not showing up? She's standing on the side of the river watching you wade the waters and feel the turbulent waters on your shins, your thighs, your stomach, and you're feeling this rush coming at you and you're fighting against it with all your might. No matter how much she watches you do this, she can't feel the feeling of what's going on in the economy. And she doesn't have her boots on the ground. She's not there. And so your wife will just never understand what you had to go through. And a lot of these traditional wives, my wife the same way, they'll just go, oh, well, my husband's working and in 30 days, everything will be fine. 90 days, everything will be fine. Meanwhile, the economy is going further down in 2000, all the way into 2012. And here you are using networking, using your relationships that you've had from the past to do everything you possibly could to support your family, just to ultimately hit a point where your wife is like, I'm actually kind of happy not to see my husband every day because this stressful situation that we've been in for the last couple of years, I need a relief from it. And I think that there needs to be, I got to give you your flowers, because here's what a lot of men would do. They would also go, I want a relief from it too. I don't want to go into those waters and the turbulent rapids that are coming at me and all of the problems that I have to overcome every single day. And not only that, but do it by myself and do it without my wife. And then on top of it, to do it with knowing that my wife actually prefers me to be away from the house right now and still have to go out and grind and still have to have the game face on. Bro, that's like professional, utmost, unbelievable father figurehood right there. Is that you are willing to go do that even in the face of that adversity, and the person that you partnered with for the rest of your life, probably somewhat happy that you're not in the house, just so she's not constantly reminded of all the trials and tribulation that your family is going through at that time. When you're gone, but there's money in the bank account, she probably is like, okay, I can do my job now. I can be mom. I got some money. We got some maneuverability. I got some breathing room. And then when you come back home after 2 weeks, it's not just that you did disrupt, because I know that feeling this last year. Like, I go travel for 4 or 5 days and I speak on stage. I come back home and I'm like, hey, girls, let's go to McDonald's. Hey, girls, let's do this. Hey, girls, let's do that. And my wife's like, I told them no more McDonald's. I told them no more this. I'm like, oh, like, you're making rules here in this house and I'm not even around. And that's hard. Like, here you are supporting the financial burden of this entire house, putting food on the table, every piece of clothing they're wearing, all the food they're eating, all the gas that's in the car to take them to the places they're going is being supplied by you, exchanging your life force for the money that's paying for those things. And then to come into that environment that you're paying for and to be treated almost as like an alien, like almost like a virus that the white blood cells have to attack and be like, get the hell out of here. That's a hard thing to do. And I make this point, one, to give you your flowers and compliment you, but two, people that are listening to this in the future, stop being a little like Michael just got up and he did the work. And it's not just, hey, he did the work and he had these all these amazing opportunities. What Michael is not telling you is what it felt like, smelled like, looked like, all of these things that you're going through. I can promise you, as a young man that's maybe listening to this interview right now, you don't know what trials are. You don't know what tribulation is. You don't know what self-doubt is. You have not done enough to even be in that situation. So Michael, what you went through at this time is way more than like, hey, I'm working and putting hours on the road.
Right.
Oh, that's the easiest part that you're dealing with. Like the amount of work you had to put in was the easiest part. Now you're sleeping in places that are not your bed. You're falling asleep at the wheel, driving this truck. You're doing everything possible. You're going to gas stations, eating unhealthy. You're drinking energy drinks. You're doing everything possible to keep your energy up, your spirits high, reading books, not networking, taking time and energy away from yourself, your hobbies, yourself, so that you could take care of other human beings, which are your responsibility, obviously, but nobody's going to give you those accolades. Right now, I'm sure your wife said thank you. I'm sure your wife said all of these things and she loved you like a good wife. But just because you're standing on the side of the river doesn't mean you actually know what it feels like to have that turbulent water pushing against you all day, every freaking day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you keep mentioning the painting. I think what was harder than that was in Mississippi in the summertime working on those naval ships, because you would take a gallon of water and fill it up halfway and throw it in the freezer every night. So 2 gallons, halfway filled with water, throw them in the freezer. In the morning, you'd fill it up the rest of the way with water and you'd carry those 2 jugs on the ship. And you would literally drink those 2 jugs throughout the day and you wouldn't even go to the bathroom by lunchtime.
You're just sweating it all out.
Yeah, from head to toe. They literally, in every bathroom, they had like a chart. If your urine is this color, stop working. And,
Yeah, and my thought is here, it's like, you've read the books, right? It's not like these books just magically put millions of dollars in your bank account either. Like you had read them 13, 14 years prior, 10 years prior, right? 8 years prior, 6 years prior. You had read the books. You were still listening to podcasts. You were doing everything you possibly could, investing your time and energy. And sometimes it's just waiting for the right opportunity and getting your head above water. But you didn't get your head above water and then start reading the books. You start reading the books and getting yourself educated so that when you do get your head above water, you go, oh my gosh, my eyeballs are open. I know when there's an opportunity. Like following that agent from Michigan back in 2008, 9 down south and saying, oh, there's an opportunity. That came not just because of who you are, that came because your eyeballs are open and you see the opportunity. So kudos to you. You're working, you're grinding to a certain degree, thanklessly. And I can also tell you that men get blamed. People, if you're a woman listening to this, text your husband right now and just say, thank you for all the crap you go through that I don't see. Thank you for being the man that you are, that I don't have to feel it, hear it, smell it. I don't have to be around it. You come home. I mean, bro, I did the same thing. When things happen, I know exactly what it feels like to be a handyman and run around to property management companies and go, what do you have for me? I got me and a Tacoma and all my tools. I'll fix anything, do anything. This was when I was 24, 25 years old. And I'm sitting there going, nobody will ever know what it felt like to be in that cab of my truck all by myself, wondering if I'm going to even get paid on this little shower valve, or if I even know how to fix this problem that I'm spending gas and time and energy to go down to. There are so many things that you did where you were taking flyers. People would call you off these flyers to get a job estimate, and you'd give them an estimate and they'd never call you back. This happened.
Stacks of quotes like this.
Yes. And you're following up on quotes. You're like, there's so much that we haven't gone into to really paint the picture of the crap that you went through to get through all of this stuff. It is so much more nuanced than somebody that's 18 years old right now DMing me. Like, I'll give you, want to hear a good DM? This is really great because this is where my mind is right now and why I keep hammering on this. I got a DM today I need help. Please help me. I'm a young, motivated adult. I want a better future for myself. Can you please help me? Then I get, let's see here. There's one that was so good this morning. It was basically like, my name is Seb. I'm 17 years of age, and I've been kicked out of my home since I was 15. I've always been working my body to the bone just to support myself. I've been looking for a way to make some serious cash to get me out of this lifestyle I'm currently living. I've always had a hustle for money, whether it's Facebook Marketplace, buying or reselling, or To say the least, I'm currently doing an apprenticeship, which isn't what I want to do with my life. Okay, great. You're doing things. You're making sure the money is there, right? Which I love. My goals are financial freedom, location, time freedom. I'm looking for a big opportunity to work with someone like yourself to get okay, great. As they say, no risk, no reward. What I love about Seb versus the first DM I received, the first DM I received is, I need help. Didn't even say their name. Seb is like, I'm doing everything like literally, this is the DM I just got. Seb's like, I'm working, I'm grinding, I'm an apprenticeship, I'm 17 years old, I'm working my butt out, I'm doing whatever I possibly can. I'm looking for a bigger opportunity. Are you open to having a conversation? That's the person that gets the opportunity, not the person that says, I need help.
I would argue that you already are helping. What you have created in the content that you give for free and you blast out, I couldn't imagine. The reason I joined the SubTo community is I couldn't imagine, if you give this much for free, what more could there be? And I have met some of the most amazing. I've only 3 weeks. That's it. And that Carolyn Kane, Tanisha, I think it was Brandon Clark last night. When you listen to them, they are so giving of their heart. They're so passionate. They're so willing to help people. I don't know how you have surrounded yourself with these people, but what you have created, to me, has been such a joy to be a part of. And it's only been 3 weeks. I just can't believe it.
Tanisha's been part of SubTo for 3 years. And if you think about, for the first year, she had no idea what she was doing. She didn't know any of the terminology.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Nothing.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I mean, all these people, everybody. Caroline Kane, she was an acquisition manager of mine for a year. I meet Caroline Kane. She has no money, nothing. She knows nothing about real estate. And I go, I'll Venmo you $500 to get your butt across the country and pay for somebody else's gas. Because she had a dog and she had some personal effects. And I said, come work for me for a couple months. Take a chance on yourself. I love your personality. She worked as an acquisition manager, a disposition manager. And then when I launched the community, I said, I need your personality to run the daily dial. Like every one of these people that you hear, see, and Brandon Clark, everybody started with nothing. And we built them up. And like Tanisha 2 years ago goes, I think I want to do midterm rental. I'm like, great. How do I prop you up? How do I help you? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? And you think that they all have 20 years of experience because of how they care. But the culture of this community comes from the top. And so when I built it, I was like, I need this to be something I'm excited about hanging out and not just doing one Zoom a week. We do 39 Zooms a week.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
So, yeah. And it's meant to be. It's like, how can I identify every time zone, everybody that's all over the country, no matter what time of the day they need help, there's a live Zoom going on. They can go in there and get somebody's help, right? Yeah. And like last night, I get a DM from somebody, a newer student, 2 weeks in, Pace, I really need help on a deal. I go, bro, go to the SubTo calendar, whatever Zoom's going on right now, go into that Zoom and type in, I need help, and see what happens. He replies back to me, goes, I got help. Thank you. I'm like, boom. That's what anyway. So I just want to make sure I hit this hard enough, because we could talk for 2 or 3 hours about just stories on stories on stories about, if you're a contractor there and you're doing odd end jobs, or you're a truck driver and you're doing these long hauls, there is so much more to it than just getting in and out of your truck.
Yeah.
There is scheduling, sanitation. Where am I going to go to the bathroom? Where am I sleeping tonight? Am I going to wear the same clothes 3 days in a row? Am I, all of these things that you do, whatever you possibly can to take care of your loved ones, your wife, your kids. Nobody gets enough respect for this. And I just want to stop and say, bro, like, you did whatever it freaking took to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And so you start driving truck. Your wife is doing homeschooling. We're in what, 2011, 2012 at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2011, I think, is when I started going on the road. We're back in Michigan now, so we're on the road. We're in the small house that the friend of mine that got deployed. And so I was working for a company in Michigan. And what happens in this industry as a skilled tradesman, when you have a skill, people want to keep you. And so what I saw was the guy was a younger owner, and he had a sponsor, and the sponsor I'd known from the 90s working for him. I'd work at Ford Motor Company, and then when you'd be slow, I'd go, we got laid off for a few, I don't know, maybe a couple months or whatever. Well, then I worked for this guy. So I'm collecting my, unemployment and working for this guy on the side. And so I had a relationship with him. Well, they would do a big job and they'd make good money, and we'd work 12 hours, 16-hour days, and then we'd be off for 3, 4 days, 5 days, whatever. And so they would take you to the warehouse and you'd paint the high lows, and we'd lube everything and change the oil on the equipment. And well, after 2 weeks of being in the warehouse working on equipment, guys are drinking at lunchtime. It's just kind of a casual environment, but everybody's collecting a 40-hour paycheck. I thought, man, this cannot go on where this guy can afford to pay 10, 15 guys making payroll. So I get my resume and I go out to all the other rigging outfits in Detroit. And one of the guys that I had dropped off a resume to gave it to a machinery dealer. This machinery dealer calls me up and goes, "Hey, I got a small job in Iowa. One phase is 30 days, and then I got a big job for 6 months. Would you be willing to go look at it?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going to do 6 months in Iowa, but I'll go do your 30-day job." And so it was a two-man job. I get another guy. We drive out there, and we finish that 30-day job in 16 days. And the guy says, "Listen," he goes, "it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how much. Make it worth your while. Go look at that job. Just drive up and take a look at it." And so in Webster City, Iowa, they had an Electrolux plant, 1 million square feet, 72 stamping presses, plus a tooling room and all these other, rooms that support a facility like that. We ended up doing that job, and that's what put me back on the map. So I ended up hiring 5 guys, working for this guy. He was very gracious with me. And that's when things started getting better too with like my wife. So I'm coming home, I'm gone 2 weeks, come home 4 days, 2 weeks, 4 days, 3 weeks, 4 days. And but I would be bringing money with me, and here, put it in a safe deposit box. And so we were all the guys' wives are getting payroll from my wife, so she's supportive and helping me on the back end do all this stuff so I can manage it. And I ended up staying with that guy for about 4 or 5 years, just going from job to job all over the country. A next door neighbor to my mother, she has a home on Lake Huron, a summer home. He was one of the first guys to come in and tear down the little cottage with leave one wall and build a palatial estate. And this guy owned an insurance company. So he knew me since I was like 10 years old. And we built a relationship through the years, him and his wife. He had 4 children. And I think, because I had 6, I think, there was a mutual respect there. And in passing one day, he says, "You ought to buy my company." He said, we're getting ready to wind down over the next few years. And one of his clients, they had a legacy plan 10 years in advance. And he said, "So I don't want to wait 10 years, but I'd like to start prepping. Is this something you'd be interested in?" I said yes. And because I saw him, he'd pull up to the lake house in his Corvette with his Rolex, and just a different lifestyle than I'd ever been exposed to. And so we started talking over the next year about how I could wind down on the rigging side and start working in the insurance industry. We ended up doing that. 2014, I got my license. 2017 is when I pulled the trigger and went full time. I did one big job for, I think it was Gestamp down in Alabama, like Birmingham, Alabama. And that was my last big job that I could put money away to survive, because it's you eat what you kill in insurance. And in that first year, I made $11,000 and burned through my savings account. So now in 2018, I'm in a semi Monday. I'd work Monday through Friday at the insurance company. So I get off work at 5 o'clock Monday, and at 6 o'clock I get in a semi, and I'd work till 1 or 2 in the morning. And I did that Monday and Friday nights. And then I probably worked every other weekend doing a long haul, like something down to Tennessee and back. I could do a day in, a day out. And yeah, that's how we survived. And so in 2019, the guy that I was doing those loads for was a younger guy, was like my dispatcher. Like, he worked Monday through Friday, and I would do those weekend gigs if he had a steady customer that wanted to do it. And he said, we just kept talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd like to go off on my own. I'd like to do my own thing." And what inspired him, or kind of pricked him, I think, is when the economy went bad in 2009, 2010. The message here is take care of your employees. His boss and owner took away his health benefits. He said, "I can't afford them. The economy's tightening up." And he was okay with that. He understood that. But then when the guy showed up with a $400,000 motor coach to pull his race cars around and he still didn't have his benefits back, that's what inspired him. I had then taken the equity out of our home because at this point in 2012, I ended up buying a house and we bought it at the bottom of the market. So it was a very nice home that we were able to get for 160,000 on 2.5 acres, 6 bedrooms from a bank, and we take equity out of our home and I start buying semis. So I'm doing this in insurance over here. Then I go buy the first semi, then the two, now I've got, 4 trucks on the road every day and we've got an insurance agency. And I looked back on my life with the rental properties that we have they'll all be paid off in September of this year. And, I wish I had more. I wish I would have done more because it's not enough to live on to, have that support of it. And so that's why I started looking into real estate and came across you, and that's where it all began.
Wow, bro. What I love about this guy that you worked for is that you actually had to put in 4 or 5 years of hard work for this guy to notice that you were a reliable human being that he could give that opportunity to in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Like a lot of people don't realize it's like, well, yeah, this doesn't come out of thin air, guys. You have to put in the freaking work. And not only do you have to put in the freaking work, you have to put in a long time. And it's tough. And it's really, really tough. But you're resilient, bro. Like you're beyond resilient. Now what's the game plan? What do you want to do now that you're venturing more into real estate?
Well, so the insurance company, I'm still paying on it. So whenever COVID hit, he has a home in Florida and a home in Michigan. He never came back from Florida. He said, we're going to, fast pace this and let's get it done, and drafted paperwork. And I think, January 2021 is when I started buying it. So I still have a note that I'm paying there. I enjoy the business development side. I don't enjoy the account management side as much. And so I'm looking at merging with another firm that, will alleviate that kind of work, and I can still do the sales development, which I enjoy. And then the trucking company, I'm not day-to-day operations. I'm just more of a CFO role and kind of oversee everything from a financial perspective. And that company is paying me back for the initial investment now that's profitable. And then with the real estate, my goal now is to sharpen my skills and go out and genuinely help people solve problems. I don't get that joy of giving to others and problem solving, because even the people I serve on the insurance side, like I'm dealing with you as a company owner, Pace, your employees will all benefit from the work that I do, but I never get to personally meet them. So I don't get that satisfaction. You as a business owner always appreciate what I can do because it's typically 10 to 20 decrements off of one of your largest operational expenses that we can save. But the employees are the ones that I think I would get more joy from helping.
So where do you want to focus your time in real estate? I mean, you've got like something that we just added in SubTo is Andrew McGuire, student that's been around for a whole year in SubTo. I asked him to focus on Thursday mornings to do a 2-hour Zoom where he's calling expired listings. And in the last 90 days, I've bought 9 houses from him. And all he's doing is doing 2 hours of calls every single morning. And he made like 60 grand last month. Where are you wanting to spend your time?
I would like to do that, the active outreach, where I can wholesale some deals to sharpen my skills and joint venture with people to feel comfortable again. And then I want to do the long-term rentals to establish wealth and have generational wealth to pass along to my children.
I love it, bro. I love it. You've been going into the daily dial?
Yes. Yeah.
What I would do is I would get into the daily dial for maybe another week or two, and then I would jump in with Andrew McGuire on Thursday mornings, and I would start working on expired listings in your area with local. You're in Michigan right now?
Yeah. And I'm still a licensed realtor. I've been paying the fees for, since 2004. So I have access to the MLS and, all the stuff, even though I've never done anything with it.
Here's what I would do. I would go back to my last 2 expired listing trainings and watch those this weekend. And what we're doing is for the agents who have access to the MLS, I'm getting other students to go underneath them and make the calls on behalf of you, and then set appointments for you to talk to the sellers and lock up SubTo and seller finance deals. Bro, like become friends with Andrew McGuire. Here's what happened to Andrew McGuire. Joined SubTo last year. He's an agent, so he's super busy. He bought the mentorship because he thought it was a mentorship, right? And then he doesn't do anything with it. And then his whole entire real estate pipeline dries up maybe 4 months ago, and he goes, crap, I got to go get a job. So he starts Googling, go get a job. And as he Googles, he sees a YouTube video of mine. He's like, dude, what the heck? I bought that guy's mentorship. I might as well take advantage of this thing. So he goes back into SubTo. goes into like, if you're an agent, go watch this training, and he watches my expired listing calls, and he goes and makes $61,000 in the next 30 days.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Now I go, hey, he's sold me a fourplex, a duplex, and a couple of other properties. And I said, why don't you start doing a Thursday Zoom and getting other people excited about teaming up? And he sends me a text message 2 days ago. He goes, bro, I built a whole team out of SubTo. Like, I've got 12 people calling for me now. I don't have to make all these calls myself. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And now what we're doing is he's doing breakout rooms where other people like yourself who have access to the MLS are now recruiting teams underneath them in SubTo. And they're the ones that are making the calls while you're out doing your other business. And then all you have to do is take the appointments at a higher level. And with all your experience of making calls and building relationships with people, like, that's all you should be doing. You should just get a team underneath you, use your MLS access as leverage to provide leads and opportunity to all these people in SubTo. They'll make the calls. They'll set the appointments for you to talk to these expired listings, bro. Like, you got a golden opportunity right now.
I think that's where the visionary side takes over. I don't know the technical side to be able to do that or pull the expired listing. So I'm just going to have to, call the MLS and get me some training,
Andrew, this is why I built a community. Like, screw.
Oh, okay.
Andrew,
right.
Andrew will show you on the Thursday Zooms exactly how to pull your MLS.
Got it.
Go into the vault, go and watch my last 3 expired listings trainings, and then watch the last 2 weeks of Andrew McGuire making the calls live. And then once you do, reach out to Andrew McGuire. Don't reach out to him before, reach out to him afterwards. So you have a way better understanding of what questions would be a really good fit. And then say, hey, I'd like to be one of the people in the breakout sessions that help lead one of the rooms. And you'll be able to recruit a team. One, you'll see how he's pulling the list, exactly the technical things. We talk about the KPIs and the training of, like, you're going to make this many calls. You're going to get this many appointments. You're going to get this many appointments. You're going to make this much money. Go watch the training. It's fresh, like fresh. Then once you do this weekend, go and reach out to Andrew McGuire. In fact, I'll put you guys, once you tell me you've watched all the training, I'll put you and Andrew McGuire together. So I'll skip the step of you having to wait for him to reply. He will help you. Like, that's why we have a community. It's like, screw the YouTube world, screw courses, screw mentorships. This is a community of people that will reach across and go, hey, Michael, let me help you out. Let me show you exactly what I needed to know 4 months ago when I started making a bunch of money. And it'll take your learning curve down to 0.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because time is what's hard for me. That's the hardest thing right now.
Yeah, but if you're leveraging the students in SubTo to make the calls on your behalf, and you're just giving them access to the MLS expired listings, you'll be able to just do an hour of work a day where you're talking to the sellers who are actually interested. Here's what you do. Watch the training, expired listing training, go into the SubTo vault, go to subtocourse.com, go into the vault, type in expired listings. It'll pop up all the videos. You'll see the date on them. You go, okay, these are them. Boom, 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 boom. Watch them. It's going to take you 6 hours. It's a lot of work, but you're not foreign to work, obviously. And then what you do is go watch the last couple of weeks of Andrew McGuire, so you see how he operates, see what he talks about, and then reach out to me and say, hey, I watched the training. And I will then reply back and go, awesome, congrats. I'll put you in touch with Andrew McGuire, and you can get on a phone call. You can say, hey, Andrew, I want to help. I don't want to take your shine, like, you're the guy, but I want to help out in the side chat. My purpose would be to recruit a team underneath me for the Michigan expired listings. He doesn't call Michigan expired listings. He calls Arizona. So you guys aren't competing. You're helping each other. What then will happen is next Thursday, he runs the Zoom, and then he does breakout sessions. And the breakout sessions is everybody goes into their own individual Zoom that has access to the MLS and says, hey, I'm Michael. I'm going to go into a Michigan breakout room. Whoever wants to call on Michigan, come in here. And you give people the Michigan expired listings. They make the calls and they set up appointments for you. And now you guys are JVing and moving forward, and you're getting stuff done. Like, literally, you could have deals next week. Dang, I went an hour with you already, bro.
I know, it flew by. I was so nervous. I was shaking like a little girl before I got on the Zoom.
Really? Oh, bro, this is easy. People needed to hear this story, man. This is good. I'm so proud of you, and so cool. It's so cool to watch. And obviously I understand what it feels like to have to go through all of those things. And who knows, man? I'm sitting last night, okay? I'm at lunch with I have a private doctor now that's like, they charge $3,000 a month, which seems like a lot of money, but you got one property makes $3,000 a month that pays for the doctor. So you have a private, like, concierge doctor. You can text them, hey, I need a prescription, blah, 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 blah. Never thought that was a possibility 10 years ago, right? But I'm sitting down with him, and he's got 80 clients paying him $3,000 a month, $250,000 a month in income. I go, what's your biggest fear? He says, that I'm going to lose it all. I'm like, isn't that funny that all of us men that have grinded so long, so hard, all still have this thing in the back of our minds of like, I'm going to lose it all. I'm going to lose it all. You become a person that it's like you become so resilient that like that gets past you. And once you lose it all once or twice, it doesn't happen over and over and over. You needed that to become who you are, and it won't happen again, bro. This is going to be amazing. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I would say the fear for me is I know the time that it took to develop it. I don't want to sacrifice the time with my children. I've missed a lot of firsts, and I want the time back to invest in them. They're the next generation, and they're the ones that, So when him saying my fear is losing it all, it's not losing it all. I'm not afraid to grind it out again, but I don't want to sacrifice the time away from my family.
This is why you use the community as leverage to get the people that don't have the chops on the phone. They don't have the knowledge that you have. They don't have the all the things that you've acquired. You've now acquired some very valuable skills that now all you have to do is go to the SubTo community on the Thursdays and go, hey, I have access to leads. I also am very good on the phone. I'm going to be the person you set appointments for. And now you can collaborate with Andrew and go, hey, Andrew, I got this call coming up, but I don't know what to say. Will you get on the call with me? And now you and Andrew are collaborating on a high level. Like, of course, you don't know how to explain all the creative finance terms yet. You've been in for 3 weeks. That's why you get Andrew McGuire, who's been in for a year, or you get Tanisha, or you get one of the 1,000 other students to go, hey guys, my team is setting appointments for me, but I'm a little bit stuck as to what to say on this particular thing. Can somebody like ride shotgun with me on this phone call? And now you're doing conference calls with like Tanisha and you and the seller, or Brandon Clark and you and the seller, Andrew McGuire, you and the seller. So you do that for a couple of months, bro. You become a master at creative finance. Now you'll never have to worry about leads. All you have to do is go, guys, I'm working 1 hour a day. You guys call, you set appointments for me. I'm calling during that 1 hour a day. And now you got the leverage to be like, I'm not going to miss any time with my kids. And I'm going to leverage all the skills and the resources and knowledge that I've acquired over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, this is great. I really appreciate you. This was, that you are the company you keep. And I think that's why I was nervous to get around you because, listening to your story and what you've accomplished and how people edify you in the way that you give back to others, that's what I want to do. And that's why I think that's why I was nervous, but excited at the same time, like if you give this much, of yourself, then I can give a little bit of myself to others.